Imagine that your school or workplace announces a seminar you're required to attend, named Conversations on Whiteness. Obviously they'll be talking about white people, but in what context? Would you expect them to discuss how to help those in need in the white community? Or will it be a celebration of the wonderful contributions white people have made to the world? Well, of course we wouldn't expect that. Without a doubt, the seminar would be a condemnation of white people. But why would we assume that to be the case? Because throughout the Western world we see classes, workshops and seminars that do just that. They condemn us as a race. Such as a corporation training its staff to, quote, try to be less white. A city council instructing their employees on, quote, undoing your own whiteness. A school where all the white Christian boys were told to stand up, then were identified as the oppressor. The highest ranking military officer remarking that he wants to understand white rage. Yes, these are the most powerful institutions in our society. Corporations, government, schooling, the military, and of course the media. And whenever white people are mentioned as a group, it's exclusively to criticise, blame, attack and denounce. We wouldn't accept this being done to any other race. So why do most white people accept it being done to them? Well, from birth we've been taught by these institutions to see ourselves as the oppressors and non-white people as our victims. Examples of slavery, genocide and colonisation that we're constantly reminded of are exclusively incidents where whites were the villains and non-whites the victims. And we're told that these atrocities were the result of a terrible evil that is unique to white people called racism. And we're told that still today our countries and civilization remains drenched in this so-called racism. The people who push this message are not empathetic. They're not trying to right the wrongs of history. They're anti-white. They know that if they can label you as the oppressor, they can justify any action against you, even violence, in the name of liberating the oppressed. This narrative has been so thoroughly weaved into our culture that today all white people feel a sense of collective guilt, white guilt. Some might feel that this doesn't affect them personally, but today children are being taught to hate themselves just for being white.
So I had an affinity group today, and it was groups where you had to go into your race, and what we were talking about is what it means to be white, and it felt really weird, and
why did it feel weird?
I didn't feel comfortable talking.
Okay. Why is that?
I don't know. If I had the choice, I would be with my friends, not just by race, because that feels awful.
Okay.
Oh.
It's alright. That's okay.
So we were just talking about Reconciliation Week, and what did you say, Evie?
Mummy said that I was the white people and I didn't want to.
Don't want to be the white people.
And I want to be the brown skin people.
Yeah, but we're trying to make it better, aren't we?
Yeah, and the white people took everything away, like children, babies, like that.
Away from them,
Away
from the Aboriginal people.
Yeah, but I'm still upset about that white skin.
Yes.
First, it was in early spring of 2020 when my 6-year-old somberly came to me and asked me if she was born evil because she was a white person, something she learned in a history lesson at school.
Dear women, I'm sorry. Dear black people, I'm sorry. Dear Asian Americans, dear Native Americans, dear immigrants who come here seeking a better life, I'm sorry. Dear everyone who isn't a middle or upper class white boy, I'm sorry.
And I hate being white. I do. I really hate it because I'm told on a daily basis that I'm a racist because I'm white.
Our ancestors fought and died in bloody wars, struggled through disease and famine, did back-breaking work to build a better life for their descendants. What would they think if they knew that today children were ashamed to be white, that they were being taught to hate their country, their history, their culture, their legacy, and themselves? This is a sickening form of emotional abuse which must end. So what can be done about this? Well, the first step is to correctly identify it as being anti-white. The next step is to correctly name it as being anti-white, and the third step is to oppose it for being anti-white. How do you identify it? Well, it won't always be in the form of a personal attack. Sometimes it will be the vilification of our ancestors, our history, our culture, our way of life. All thoughts, actions, and policies that are hostile to Western kind is anti-whiteism. If you're not sure if something is anti-white, consider whether it would be acceptable if the same thing was being said or done to non-white people. Then you must correctly name it as being anti-white. Don't call it liberalism because many conservatives are also anti-white. Don't call it communism because many capitalist billionaires are also anti-white. Don't call it woke, social justice, and other vague terms that don't explain anything and might even be taken as a compliment. If you can't correctly name things, you can't correctly oppose them. So call it anti-white. And opposing anti-whiteism can be as simple as calling it out and putting the onus on the offender to prove they are not anti-white, or explain why they think it's morally acceptable to be anti-white. Of course, there is no acceptable level of anti-whiteism, and there is no defence for being anti-white. This is a crucial struggle that all good moral people must take part in, because there is nothing more harmful to a person or a people than believing they are bad, immoral, oppressors, the villains of history. A child who thought that of themselves would never reach their full potential. They would have no future. And neither will our civilization if we do not rid ourselves of white guilt and oppose all forms of anti-whiteism. Once we have succeeded in ending the abuse being inflicted on Western kind, it will benefit not only ourselves and our people, but all peoples of the earth.